Jay in Texas. Jay, you are on the air for Truth Wanted. What is up?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning,
How's
TJ.
it going, man?
It's evening here. I don't know where you're at, but it's around 7 o'clock here in the Central Texas area.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not too far from you.
Okay.
It's a good morning. It's easy to remember, and it always gets a laugh.
All right.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll take it, Jay.
Works for us.
So I see that you want to talk about Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. What specifically did you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, so I'm just to set the table here. I am an ex-Mormon, so yay for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay! Good for you.
I thought you were going to be a current Mormon. I was like, okay, this should be interesting. I'm surprised you're not calling from Utah. Okay.
Well, I did live in Utah.
Okay, when you were a Mormon?
When I was a Mormon, I grew up in the cult. I didn't know any different, so I thought it was the true, one true church. Yeah, and then eyes were opened, and I'm not a Mormon anymore.
Well,
So,
happy for you for that.
Yeah. So what about Joseph Smith and how he translated the book? Because that's what I see specifically here. Like, you want to talk about the method of what he did, which is not a not a legit one at all, right?
It's not even close.
Yeah.
So let's pretend that he actually did the Book of Mormon, which he didn't. But I mean, he wrote it, but he didn't get it from God. But let's pretend he did.
Okay.
Right? That's what the Mormon Church teaches.
Right.
And the whole time growing up, they teach you that he sat down and turned each leaf and read the words in the Reformed Egyptian. I'm doing the quote marks with my hand. That's a fake language. And wrote it down. And then, or said the words, and then the scribe wrote it down. But if you look in the history, the Joseph Smith Papers, which the church pushes, it's josephsmithpapers.org, so you can go look at the original text. There's not one place in there where it says Joseph Smith looked at the plate. The whole time, it always talks about that stone in the hat, which we all know, right? We hear that a lot, that he read the stone in the hat. But there's another piece to that they still don't talk about. And that part is that he read word from word off of the stone, and that the words did not disappear off of the stone until the text was correct by the scribe.
Ooh.
So then that leads me to question one, why did they change the text? Was the rock wrong? Was God wrong? Or did Joseph Smith make it up? We all know the right answer.
There are plenty of possibilities for something to be translated wrong, right? I mean, somebody can mistranslate intentionally, to deceive you, but you also have to consider that sometimes when people translate, they could make errors, so...
Yeah, so, I didn't know much about the history of the actual text until I talked to Bryce Blanket from the Naked Mormonism podcast. He actually got to be on this show early on when we were first getting started here. And growing up outside of the history of that, because I understand, like, that's like a story that's told to Mormons as far as the translation goes. That's a cultural kind of story that's passed on, and that means something more to a Mormon than it would for me. Coming up as an outsider and hearing that, it's just like, that's just total bullshit. But I didn't grow up with that.
Everyone's bullshit is obviously bullshit to somebody else.
Yeah, and it's like with his story in particular, it's like, okay, so there were these plates that nobody has ever actually accessed except for some witnesses supposedly that signed a document that some of them later recanted. Right, and it's just like it's kind of crazy. It's like, if
you go back and look at what the witnesses actually said, not one of them saw the plates. They said they saw them with their spiritual eyes.
Right. Yeah, they saw visions of it.
Spiritual eyes?
Yes. Yeah, I remember hearing about this too. And it's just like, okay, but these are obviously specific details that you have to like critically look into the history of. If you're hearing this story for the first time and someone is orally presenting this to you in church,
this is the first time I've heard spiritual eyes. I think my spiritual eyes have glaucoma.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you need to get that checked out.
Yeah.
There's some chakras stuff we could look at.
Yeah, we got to look into this. I need to get my chakras aligned.
Exactly. But anyway, obviously, to do that, to even approach it with a critical mindset is to go against kind of everything you've known and everything you've grown up and the people around you. And I can see why that's hard for folks.
Oh, totally.
But yeah, I don't know. It's not convincing to me at all. It's not convincing to me at all. And to be fair, I've never really talked to any Mormon apologists on this show.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think I have either.
Yeah.
The only Mormons that I talk to are the people that come to my door, and as soon as they realize I've read a good deal of the Bible and have questions, they pretty much leave. So
yeah, that's another thing too. We don't have a whole lot of Mormons here.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, we got some in the Austin
there are
area,
a lot of Jehovah Witnesses in the area,
Yeah.
but there aren't a lot of Mormons.
But anyway, yeah, it is interesting, Jay, that just to talk about, like what exactly he really did as far as like the book itself, because it's almost, the book is written like, it's trying to be like Old English almost, which is like, even more bizarre because, that's not how.
He mimicked the Bible, the King James Version of the Bible. So if you look at the King James Version and the Book of Mormon, it's written very similar. And then the War of 1812 book, it's kind of mimicked like that. So if you read that one, you'll find a lot of very similar passages. They're not identical, but they're very, very similar. So you know that him and I think it was Oliver Cowdery were the two who actually wrote the Book of Mormon. You can see that they're using the same kind of concepts. But I think it's just interesting that the Mormon Church teaches one thing, but in their actual documents is a completely different way that Book of Mormon was.
I mean,
supposedly.
A lot of Christianity does that too.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, we'll say one thing, and then the Bible actually says something else.
Completely different. So
that's not too uncommon, it turns out.
But as for me, I think that it comes as no surprise that somebody who's writing a book and trying to convey that this is a written word of God would speak in a way similar to their understanding of how God talks. So if your understanding of how God talks is the King James Version of the Bible, and you say, oh, I talked to God, he said, you would make God sound like someone who spoke Old English because your understanding of God is someone who's speaking in Old English.
Well, I think that is mostly like, the copying, like you said, the King James text of the time, which is kind of this Old English kind of text. And so you want your translation to reflect that of this other authoritative source. I think that
to you, God says thou and thy. You know, like God doesn't say,
Yeah, it says it in the original Egyptian, Shane. You just got to translate it. So,
The Reformed Egyptian.
The Reformed Egyptian, that's right. Well, yeah, Jay, I'm again glad that you're ex-Mormon now. What was it that got you out of it? Was it this specific fact about the Book of Mormon that kind of triggered it for you, and that's why you want to talk about it, or was it something else?
No, that's just something I've been digging into, and I'm actually going to be doing a whole thing on the Book of Mormon and how there's moral issues with the whole storyline.
Okay.
But that's something else. But to get me out was more that, so the Mormon church used to, before they did 2 hours, they had 3 hours church. And they have sacrament, which is where everybody meets. And then they have Sunday school, which is where the men and women meet together. And then the youth go someplace else. And then they have a third session, which is where the men separate from the women and they each get their own instruction.
Okay.
Well, during this men's section, they would talk about treating your wives kindly and being nice to them, which is good, right? You want to treat your wife kindly.
Mm-hmm.
But then the very next words out of their mouth would be like, for Mother's Day, you need to do the dishes and make dinner. I'm like, wait, how is that treating your wife nicely?
Letting her do your dishes?
That stuff all the time anyway. It's a partnership, not a, wife does the work. And sometimes they would say, buy a vacuum for Christmas. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That is just why would you do? So that's what started me saying, this isn't right.
I just can't imagine thinking that, like, I love you so much that I will let you clean up after me.
Yeah.
I don't know what that mindset would be like.
I do. I used to be in that mindset.
You used
it took
to.
me. Yeah.
I'm glad you came out of it, man. That is interesting to hear.
By the way, I want to correct myself. I'm pretty sure I said
Okay.
Brian Blankenegel earlier, and I'm realizing, no, it's Bryce. Which is really awkward because I know him and I haven't talked to him in a while, but yeah, it is Bryce Blankenegel for those of you who want to look up the Naked Mormon as a podcast. But I don't know why I said Brian.
Can I ask? Did I hear you correctly? Did you say you were writing a book about this?
No. I'm going through the Book of Mormon and finding all the
I wanted to make
there's
sure.
a piece in there where someone who one of the very first characters in the book, Nephi, he kills a guy who is drunk. He chops off his head while he is drunk and incapacitated and on the ground. Why is that in the book? why did Joseph Smith add that piece to the book? So I'm not looking at it from a religious point of view. I'm looking at it from a moral. Why would someone do this?
Well, was it relevant to the story?
It wouldn't be the first time that stories like that appear in biblical texts as well.
Right.
I mean, the part that they don't tell you about in Sunday school with David and Goliath is that David is carrying around Goliath's head after he cuts it off when he's done. You know what I mean? Like it's the books are always been gory.
There are a lot of things they didn't tell me in Bible school.
Yeah,
actually.
and so
that triggered me for Matt Dillahunty. I watched his atheist. I can't remember the atheist debates or something.
Okay.
And he went through one of the stories in the Bible and was talking about how immoral that story is and how terrible it is. I thought, well, crap, there's a whole bunch of those in the Book of Mormon.
Oh, yeah.
Right. He's doing that.
Yeah.
I thought, I'll just do it for the Book of Mormon since I know the Book of Mormon inside and out. I've read this thing 5, 6, 10 times. So
just remember when criticizing these ideas that when you're criticizing the morality and you're criticizing the rationality, to do so separately. Like, make sure you distinguish that, because something being immoral has nothing to do with whether or not it's rational or true. So just make sure that you make that distinction as you're making your criticism.
That's true. And, because people talk to us, and the most common defense with a lot of the stuff where we're talking about, this kind of awful looking stuff in the Bible is, well, there's a context to it, the time and place and the culture was different. And that's kind of that's the first thing you're taught as a Christian. If you're really seriously looking at this stuff as well, there's reasons and explanations for all of this stuff, even if those reasons and explanations aren't particularly.
God has his reasons. Works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, it doesn't, even if they don't work out for very good.
So you're kind of explaining about how slavery in the Bible is immoral, but people justify it because God said it was okay back then.
That's right.
And they also give the defense that it's a different kind of slavery.
Yeah.
Get ready for that defense.
Yes.
Their argument is that they're referring to like indentured servanthood.
Right.
And,
Or they'll say oh, it's just like the NBA has people under contract.
Right. So you have to keep in mind that if Dan owes me money, I don't consider him my property until he pays me back. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
He might owe me money, but he doesn't belong to me, and I certainly can't beat him to death as long as it takes over a day for him to die.
Yeah, and I didn't invade Shane's village, and even if I did, that doesn't make him, my slave either,
right?
Because he's the leftover from that. So that's some of the stuff that you'll see if you look at some of that. But I want to end this with this, Jay, because I think no matter what Shane and I ever say about Mormonism, or if we talk about Jehovah's Witnesses or anything like that, we could talk about these groups all day, but it's not going to be as poignant as whatever you have to say, Jay, because you grew up in it, and now as someone leaving that, your voice is going to be more powerful for people to listen to, because it's easy for us on the outside.
Yes, I do have a question before we get going, Jay. Could I ask you, did you ever reach the point where they gave you the magic Mormon underwear? Because I hear that's a thing.
It is. I can tell you anything you want to know about the temple.
Did you get it? Did they give you
I did.
Wow.
I did. I was in there. I did all the signs, the tokens.
And it's supposed to be, when you're in there, it's supposed to be a secret that there's like a magic underwear.
Well,
right?
They don't call it magic underwear. They call it sacred.
Sacred.
Yeah,
okay, but it's a secret to people that aren't Mormon, right? Okay.
Yeah, you're supposed to keep them covered and not let anybody see them, and don't talk about them.
As with most underwear.
Just before I did the temple thing, they used to have the part where you had to slit your throat. Well, you didn't. You just motioned it.
Okay.
But if you told anybody, that you would have to kill yourself. But they removed that from the temple.
What?
Fuck.
As violent. Oh, yeah. There's lots of stuff about the Mormon.
That is so toxic.
So here's the thing about the temple stuff, because a lot of some of that's been leaked already on YouTube. A lot of those, the rituals and stuff that they do.
That is one of the most toxic Mormon ideas, if not the most.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if you look at those rituals, it looks like 90% of it is just really boring. It's just like a bunch of people.
Boring.
Yeah, a bunch of people in white clothes just moving around doing stuff. But then there's like those little bits.
Start to go through what those motions actually mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's some of those motions. So if you see a person holding their hand, I can't remember which hand it is. One hand is up, facing up, and one hand is facing down, and the thumb is out. And then you do a motion across your body. That they don't tell you this in the temple specifically, but they used to. It's a previous history thing. That was cutting your bowels because you gave up the token. That's your penalty if you give up that token.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Man.
So there's a lot of gruesomeness in there.
So a lot of coercion via violence is what that sounds to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay. Because, Shane, if we really think this is true, like we should make sure you really know by putting this knife up to your throat, and you're going to say it's true to people or else I'm going to kill you, right?
That's because God, that's another reason why I'm doing the Book of Mormon thing too, is if there's a lot of veiled threats in the Book of Mormon, and definitely the Doctrine Covenants, which is another book of Mormon Jews, that if you don't do something, God will punish you. And so it fits with the Mormon temples that if you don't do something, God is going to punish you. So that's everywhere. I mean, Joseph Smith had it tons of times where one is he used a flaming sword to threaten women to have sex with them, because if they didn't, then God was going to kill him with the flaming sword.
Holy shit.
So
that's crazy.
It's everywhere in there.
To think that someone could believe that is
if you're a follower, I could see it happening, right?
Yeah. Imagine putting that in your Tinder bio.
Yeah, if you don't have sex with me, God's gonna kill you.
I don't know.
I don't know how that would work out today.
No, I think you have to be in a certain state of suggestibility to consider.
Yeah, I can't imagine that working. Not only on Tinder, in any situation where you're like, hey, if you don't have sex with me, God's gonna do this.
Well, if you think you're talking to the prophet of God on earth,
you know what? There are plenty of people
that
would. So
then you have that power over people, I guess. But Jay, we do have to want to get to the other calls here. But thanks so much for telling us your story.
Thank you a lot,
and thanks for calling into the show this week.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you later.
All right. See you later, Jay.
Later.
Man, like I was saying, I wanted to close it out was that we could talk about this stuff all day, but like again, Jay's voice is going to matter more than our voice in this because
I don't have experience as a Mormon.
Well,
so
it's just like it's going to be more. It's going to be more convincing to me for someone who has left the beliefs, because they just are usually going to know more about it. That's not going to be true in every single circumstance, right? But like. It's going to speak to people who have already grew up with that as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm a never-mo, right? Like I talked to there's an ex-Mormon group that meets here in Austin, and I hung out with them one time, and the way they talked about being in Mormonism, they talked about almost like being in the military, like coming back from war or something. There's the stories that they told, but there's also like a camaraderie there in the experiences of just being part of the same kind of culture and community for so long and leaving it, that they can relate to certain things that I would just never be able to relate to.
Yeah.
Which makes the communication on that issue a lot harder.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, ex-Mos and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-everybody's, raise your voices because you're important.
It is. And I'm glad to know that there's like a specifically ex-Mormon group, because people here at the atheist community, you might realize when you left the same denomination that someone else is, you have this kind of bond. Like we're both ex-Catholics kind of thing, we both know what this process is like, so.
Yeah, for sure.